Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to Deep Links, where we dive deep into the real issues, no fluff, no filter. I'm glad you're here today because we're going to tackle a topic that's been blowing up lately: healthy masculinity versus toxic masculinity. We're going to cut through all the noise, no BS, no political correctness. We're going straight into the real talk about what it means to be a man today, and trust me, some of you might get a little uncomfortable, but hey, truth has a way of doing that, right? So let's kick things off by addressing the elephant in the room. What even is toxic masculinity? If you listen to the mainstream narrative, you'd think being a man is some kind of disease. You hear this term toxic masculinity being thrown around like confetti, and it seems like anything and everything a man does these days gets labeled as toxic. If you're assertive, you're aggressive. If you're quiet, you're cold. If you're competitive, you're somehow dangerous. It's almost like being a man means you're always walking on eggshells. But let's get real here. We've got to ask ourselves, is masculinity itself really the problem, or is this just another attempt to shame men for simply existing? I mean, let's be honest, being a man today is like walking through a minefield. One wrong step, and boom, you're toxic. And I'm not saying there aren't guys out there who do messed up things. But to paint all men with the same brush? Come on, that's just lazy thinking. Now, before we go deeper, let's clear one thing up. I'm not here to tell you that there aren't some men out there who are genuinely toxic. There are men who abuse their strength, who dominate through fear, who think they're better than everyone else just because they have a pair of balls. Yeah, those guys exist, and that's not what we're talking about when we talk about healthy masculinity. We're talking about the average guy out there, the man who wants to be strong, wants to be confident, wants to lead, and doesn't want to be made to feel like he's some kind of monster for doing so. So let's define what we're dealing with here. Toxic masculinity, as it's often defined, is this idea that being masculine inherently means being violent, unemotional, hyper-competitive, and sexually aggressive. It's this belief that men are somehow naturally inclined to be the bad guy in every story, that we are programmed to be jerks from birth. But is that really true? Or is it just a convenient way to make men feel guilty about who they are? Here's a thought. Maybe we should stop using the word toxic to describe everything that's traditionally masculine. There's a difference between a man who's strong and assertive and a man who's an outright jerk. There's a difference between a guy who's competitive and one who's obsessed with winning at any cost. We need to separate the two because, let's face it, the line between healthy and toxic has gotten way too blurry. Let's get into what healthy masculinity actually looks like. And, spoiler alert, it's not about being soft or passive. It's not about being a doormat. Healthy masculinity is about finding strength in balance. It's about owning who you are without being ashamed of it. It's about being strong, but also being compassionate. It's about being a leader when you need to be and a listener when it's the right time. It's about knowing your worth and not letting anyone make you feel less than. You see, the world wasn't built by men who were afraid of their own shadows. The skyscrapers, the infrastructure, the technology, all the stuff we take for granted today, was built by men who had the guts to push boundaries, to take risks, to fight for something bigger than themselves. Men who had the courage to get their hands dirty, who weren't afraid of competition, who weren't ashamed to want to win. But somewhere along the line, we started confusing strength with toxicity. We began telling men that if they want to be good, they have to deny their own nature. They have to apologize for their ambition, for their drive, for their desire to be the best. And you know what that's done? It's left a whole generation of men feeling lost and confused. They don't know what's expected of them. They don't know what they're allowed to be. This brings us to a crucial point: society's constant need to redefine masculinity in a way that neuters it. We're told that to be a good man, we must be more like women, that we need to be softer, more passive, more agreeable. But here's the hard truth: a man is not a defective woman. Masculinity has its own strengths, its own virtues, its own unique contributions. And we need to stop pretending like it doesn't. Let's take a minute to talk about the so-called crisis of masculinity that everyone's buzzing about. Men are more depressed than ever, more anxious, more likely to commit suicide. Men are falling behind in education, in the workplace, and even in relationships. What's going on here? Could it be that we've spent so much time tearing down masculinity that we've forgotten how to build it up? Think about it. For years, men have been told to man up, but at the same time to not be too manly. It's like being told to run in two opposite directions at once. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you show emotion, you're weak. If you don't, you're cold. If you're driven, you're a bully. If you're laid back, you're lazy. Is it any wonder men are confused? So let's stop beating around the bush. Here's the deal. Healthy masculinity is about channeling male energy in a way that's positive, that's productive, that's purposeful. It's about using your natural strengths to contribute, to protect, to provide, to create. It's about being strong when strength is needed, soft when softness is called for, and wise enough to know the difference. Healthy masculinity is not afraid of competition, but it's not defined by it either. It's about striving to be the best version of yourself, not just in the boardroom or the gym, but in your relationships, in your community, in your personal life. It's about understanding that being a man is not just a checklist of behaviors, but a complex, evolving journey. But let's be real, folks. What happens when we deny men this journey? When we shame them for wanting to be strong, when we mock them for their ambitions, when we tell them that their natural instincts are wrong or even dangerous. Well, here's what happens. We get men who are afraid to speak up, afraid to take risks, afraid to be themselves. We get a generation of men who are passive, who are lost, who are more disconnected than ever. And let me tell you something, that's not good for anyone. Not for men, not for women, not for society as a whole. A world without strong, healthy men is a weaker world. Period. We need men who are willing to stand up, who are willing to lead, who are willing to protect. We need men who are confident in who they are, who know their value, who are not ashamed of their masculinity but are proud of it. Let's flip this conversation for a second. Let's talk about what happens when men are afraid to be men. When they're taught from a young age that being strong is bad, that being assertive is mean, that taking charge is toxic. We get men who are passive-aggressive instead of assertive, who are frustrated instead of confident, who are anxious instead of ambitious. And trust me, nobody likes that. Not even the people who think they want that. Here's the hard truth. You can't ask men to be less of themselves and then be surprised when they don't show up the way you need them to. You can't demand men be more sensitive, more in touch with their emotions, and then complain when they're not stepping up to the plate. We've created a situation where men don't know what's expected of them, and we wonder why they're checking out, why they're disengaging, why they're not fulfilling their potential. So how do we fix this? How do we cultivate healthy masculinity in a world that seems hell-bent on tearing it down? First, we've got to stop with the shaming. We've got to stop acting like every masculine trait is a flaw that needs to be corrected. Confidence isn't toxic. Assertiveness isn't toxic. Being competitive isn't toxic. These are the traits that have driven progress, that have built civilizations, that have protected families. Second, we need to encourage men to embrace all parts of themselves. Yes, you can be strong and sensitive. Yes, you can be ambitious and compassionate. Yes, you can be assertive and empathetic. Real masculinity is about balance. It's about knowing when to push forward and when to pull back. It's about being true to who you are, unapologetically, and using that truth to make a positive impact in the world. And look, ladies, you've got a role in this too. If you want men to be confident and strong, then appreciate those qualities when you see them. Don't punish men for being the very thing that makes them men. Understand that masculine energy is not the enemy, it's the counterpart to feminine energy. We're meant to complement each other, not compete against each other. Let's get back to the basics here. Men, it's okay to be strong. It's okay to be driven. It's okay to want to lead, to want to protect, to want to build something meaningful. These aren't things to be ashamed of, these are things to be celebrated. The world needs men who are willing to stand up, who are willing to speak out, who are willing to fight for what's right. But remember, healthy masculinity isn't about power over others, it's about power over yourself. It's not about being the loudest guy in the room, it's about having the quiet confidence that comes from knowing who you are and what you stand for. It's not about denying your emotions, it's about understanding them, managing them, and using them to fuel your drive and your passion. We've got to reclaim what it means to be a man in today's world. We've got to stand up and say enough is enough. No more shaming, no more guilt-tripping, no more confusion. We need to build men up, not tear them down. We need to encourage men to be strong, not afraid of their own strength. We need to show the world that healthy masculinity isn't toxic, it's powerful, it's necessary, and it's time we started respecting it. So here's the bottom line, men, don't let anyone make you feel guilty for being who you are. Don't let anyone tell you that your masculinity is something to be ashamed of. Own it, embrace it, and use it to make the world a better place. Be the man who stands up, who leads, who protects, who provides. Be the man who shows strength, not just in your muscles, but in your heart, in your mind, in your character. And if you're feeling lost, remember this, you don't have to apologize for being a man. You don't have to hide your masculinity or pretend to be something you're not. You have every right to be proud of who you are. So stand tall, speak your truth, and live your life on your own terms. All right, that's all for today, folks. Thanks for sticking around for this deep dive into what it really means to be a man in today's world. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to smash that like button and hit subscribe for more content that cuts through the noise. Leave a comment below and let me know what you think about this whole toxic masculinity debate. I want to hear your thoughts, your experiences, your truths. Remember, we're all in this together. So let's start lifting each other up instead of tearing each other down. Stay strong, stay true, and keep living life with purpose. Until next time, this is Deep Links, signing off. Peace out.